So after completing the discussion about the irreversible type of the cell injury, let's move on to the next topic, that is cell death. As we seen in the irreversible type of the cell injury, in the karyolysis stage, there is the complete nuclear dissolution which can lead to the cell death. So let's start with the first and the foremost type of the cell death, that is necrosis. Remember, necrosis is nothing but it is the pathological cell death. Pathological cell death associated with the inflammation. Generally, the microscopic examination of the necrotic tissue reveals the pinkish appearance due to the eosinophilic nature, and it will be amorphous, means it has no proper defined shape and it is associated with the inflammation. So these three finding reveals the presence of the necrotic tissue. Generally, the pink appearance is due to the eosin dye, which can be taken by the cytoplasm while the staining, and the blue appearance is due to the hematoxylin, which is carried on by the nucleus. So the eosinophilic color increases as there is the denaturation of the protein inside the cell. As there is the increase in the denatured protein, or if there is the loss of RNA or the DNA, so it will lead to the increase in the eosinophilic color. So now let's move on to the types of the necrosis. Types of necrosis. Generally, we are going to learn many types of the necrosis. So let's start with the first one, that is coagulative necrosis. Remember, coagulative necrosis is the most common type of the necrosis. Generally, the coagulative necrosis is most common because of the denaturation inside the cell or the tissue. Generally, it affects the solid organs such as heart or the kidney or the liver. I am drawing the small diagram of the organs so it is easy to remember for the long time. So the most common organ for the coagulative necrosis is the heart. Heart is the most common organ which is affected by the coagulative type of the necrosis. The frequently asked question related to the coagulative necrosis is first one, that in the coagulative type of the necrosis, the tissue architecture is preserved. Means any tissue which is affected by the coagulative type of the necrosis, the outer outline of the tissue is preserved as it is, but there will be the tombstone appearance inside the tissue. So what is tombstone appearance? It will be like the ghost cell appearance. This is the outline of the cell and this is the inner material of the cell. But in case of the coagulative necrosis, we know that outline is preserved but inner cell details is lost. Inner cell details is lost. So this is the ghost cell. we can say this is a ghost cell. Only there is the outline preservation, but there is nothing inside the cell. So the main difference between the ghost cell and the tombstone appearance is the ghost cell and the tombstone both occurs in the coagulative types of the necrosis. Similar point, coagulative type of the necrosis, but the ghost cell can also be found in the pilomatrixoma. That is for the ghost cell. Pilomatrixoma is nothing but it is the slow growing non-cancerous skin tumor, most common in the face or the neck. So the ghost cell or the shadow cell, it can be named as a shadow cell because there is nothing inside the cell, only there is the outline preservation of the cell. Whereas the tombstone appearance forms the row of tombstone cell. We will see through the pictorial representation. This is mostly common due to the pemphigus vulgaris. Pemphigus vulgaris. So let's check with the pictorial representation. So in the first picture we can see here every cell has inner cell organelles, or they have their particular details inside the cell. But from the half picture we can see that only there is the outline preservation. There is the outline preservation, but there is no cellular details. As we can see, there is no cellular details in this type of the cell. So these are denoted as the ghost cell. There is nothing inside the cell, only there is the outline of the cell. In the second picture we can see that it is the classic example for the infarct or the coagulative necrosis. We can see the necrosis in the kidney. This is the kidney. As we discussed in the coagulative necrosis, the tissue architecture is preserved, but the inner cell details are the lost, or there will be the tombstone appearance. So we can see here the yellowish necrotic material, which in the microscopic examination gives the tombstone appearance. In third picture we can see the tombstone appearance. See, tombstone appearance is nothing but the upper layer of the skin or the epidermis of the any tissue gets slowed off, leaving the bottom. So the cell present on the upper surface of the bottom or the layer which has been slowed off, so that can be denoted as the tombstone appearance or the row of the tombstone cell. So this is the tombstone row, which is denoted by the green color. It is the tombstone row. Now let's move on to the second type of the necrosis, that is liquefactive necrosis. Second type of the necrosis, that is liquefactive necrosis. Generally, the name only reveals that it is something related to the liquefied mass. It is related to the liquefied mass. Here, in the case of the liquefactive necrosis, the tissue is converted into the fluid type. Tissue is converted to the viscous fluid. Generally, there will be the push formation. Push is nothing but yellow or the creamy necrotic material, or there is the abscess formation inside the tissue. Remember, the main difference between the coagulative and the liquefactive necrosis is that in the liquefactive necrosis, tissue architecture is not preserved. Tissue architecture is not preserved. Remember this point or put it in a box, that tissue architecture is not preserved in case of the liquefactive necrosis. Generally, the liquefactive necrosis is also known as the colligative necrosis. Don't get confused between the colligative and the colligative necrosis. Generally, the liquefactive necrosis affects or can be seen in the brain or the pancreas. As we know that brain and the pancreas are rich in the hydrolytic enzyme, Let's see with the pictorial representation. In the picture we can see there is the viscous fluid appearance in the brain. So this is the liquefactive necrosis. The tissue is converted into the viscous fluid due to the necrosis. Then the third and the most common type of the necrosis, that is caseous necrosis. Generally, here caseous means it is the cheese-like whitish appear. It gives the whitish appearance and the cheese-like appearance in the necrotic tissue. It is very important because caseous necrosis is the clubbing of the first two, that is coagulative plus liquefactive necrosis. Put it in a box. It is very important to know it is the clubbing of the coagulative and the liquefactive necrosis. Here the examiner will test your knowledge. If in the exam, if in the option only coagulative and the liquefactive are given in the separated option, so you are going to choose the coagulative because it is the most common in case of the caseous necrosis. And if the both option is given in the option, so you are going to choose the both, that is coagulative and the liquefactive type of the necrosis. So remember, the caseous necrosis is the clubbing of the coagulative and the liquefactive. But as we know that neither the coagulative or nor the liquefactive gives the cheesy appearance. So how it is the combination of the coagulative and the liquefactive? Let's see with the example. So example for the caseous necrosis is first one, that is the tuberculosis. Second one is the histoplasma, which causes histoplasmosis, and third one is the coccidiomycosis. As we know that these are extremely rich in the lipid in their cell wall, which gives the cheese-like appearance in the necrotic tissue. As we can see with the picture, first of all, as we know that what is the success mantra for solving the image-based question is nothing but first point, it is the identification of the organ. We can draw the outline as it denotes the lung-like appearance, but only through the outer appearance we cannot reveal that it is the lung. But in the image we can see the small pores or the air sac, so we can confirm this as a lung. So the first thing is the identification of the organ. And the second thing we can see here, the cheese-like appearance. So we can say that it is the caseous type of the necrosis. Now let's move on to the next type of the necrosis, that is fat necrosis. Very much important. The fat necrosis can be affected by the breakdown of the fat or the omentum. Generally, in this fat necrosis, the fat is broken down into the fatty acid due to the trauma or the injury. The fat in the tissue is broken down and gives the fatty acid. In case of the omentum, the omental fat is broken down in the acute pancreatitis. So the breakdown of the omentum is due to the acute pancreatitis. In this case, there is the lipase enzyme elevation which break down the omental fat and converts the fat into the fatty acid. Later on, this fat combines with the calcium and gives the chalky white appearance and leads to the fat necrosis. Let's check with the example or the pictorial representation. As we can see in the pictorial representation, the calcium deposition with the fatty acid, the calcium gives the chalky white appearance. As this is the calcium combines with the fatty acid, gives the chalky white appearance, which is easy to diagnose the fat necrosis. Now let's move on to the fifth type of the necrosis. That is the fibrinoid necrosis. Generally, the fibrinoid necrosis is because of the antigen antibody complex. It is because of the immune complex. Remember, put it in a box. The fibrinoid necrosis is caused because of the antigen antibody complex or the immune complex which gets settled down in the wall of the arteries. Let's check with the pictorial representation. Then we will move towards the example of the fibrinoid necrosis. So here we can see the antigen antibody complexes that gets deposited within the wall of the arteries. Let's check with the example of the fibrinoid necrosis. Generally, the fibrinoid necrosis can be caused in case of the first one, that is PAN, that is nothing but polyarteritis nodosa. Generally in PAN, it is the most common characteristic lesion, which we can say it is the Escrow nodule. In the case of the PAN, there will be the formation of the Escrow nodule. Escrow nodule is nothing but it is the infection of the heart muscle. It is the infection of heart muscle characteristic of the RHD, which is our second example. Second example which can leads to the fibrinoid necrosis, that is RHD. RHD is nothing but it is the rheumatic heart disease. Third example, that is malignant STN or hypertension. And the last example, that is LSE. LSE is nothing but it is the Lipson-Sachs endocarditis. Generally, LSE is nothing but it is the form of the non-bacterial endocarditis. Which is seen with the association of the most common immune disorder, that is SLE. Remember this point. SLE is systematic lupus erythematosus. The LSE is seen associated with the SLE. So these were the few examples through which the fibrinoid necrosis is related. Now let's move on to the sixth one, that is gangrene. Gangrene type of the necrosis. Generally, the gangrene is not a clinical term. It is not the clinical term, but it is the pathological term. It's a pathological term. Generally, the gangrene can be of the two types. It is dry gangrene and the wet gangrene. Remember, as the caseous necrosis was the clubbing of the coagulative and the liquefactive, same as gangrene is also the clubbing of the coagulative and the liquefactive in the other way. Here the dry gangrene is due to the coagulative necrosis, whereas the wet gangrene is due to the liquefactive necrosis. Let me give you an example of the dry gangrene. Assume that your lower limb blood supply has been cut off. So it will lead to the coagulative necrosis. Means the outer structure of the tissue is preserved, but the inner cell details are lost. So it will lead to the coagulative necrosis. Whereas the example of the wet gangrene, if there is bacterial infection overlapping the lower limb which has lost its blood supply, so it will lead to the liquefactive necrosis. As we know that in the liquefactive type of the necrosis, the tissue is converted into the viscous fluid. So the viscous fluid is classified under the wet gangrene, which is due to the liquefactive necrosis. Let's check out with the image. So in the image we can see, in the first image we can see the coagulative necrosis. This is due to the blood supply has been lost of the lower limb. And in the second picture we can see that it is the bacterial infection which has overlap type of the gangrene, which is due to the liquefactive necrosis. Now let's move on to the last type of the necrosis, that is Schenker's degeneration. It is not a particular type of the necrosis, but the nature of this is related to the necrosis. So we are discussing the Zenker degeneration. Under the necrosis, generally the Zenker degeneration is a type of the coagulative necrosis, most commonly seen in the typhoid fever. Remember, it affects the skeletal muscle and specific to the rectus abdominis or the diaphragmatic muscle. So remember, Zenker's degeneration is particularly related with the skeletal muscle specific to the rectus abdominis and the diaphragmatic muscle. Let's check out with the pictorial representation of the Zenker's degeneration. As we discussed that Zenker's degeneration is a type of the coagulative necrosis. So same as the coagulative necrosis, we can see the ghost cell appearance same as the coagulative necrosis, because the Zenker's degeneration is also a type of the coagulative necrosis. So here the inner cell details are lost. So this was the all about the types of the necrosis and the first type of the cell death, that is necrosis.